we're going to take a look at the tenders module within the FasTrax Control Center. To navigate there, I'm going to click Point of Sale, Maintenance, and then Tenders. In the Tenders module, we have two tabs. We have the Tenders tab, and we have a Pay In/Out Accounts tab. Under the Tenders tab, by default, the system generates a default set of tenders. A tender is what the register uses to log what type of payment method the customer is paying for a transaction with, for reporting and reconciliation purposes. By default, you will have a set of tenders generated by the system and should not need to create a new one. However, if you need to, you can do so by clicking Add New on the top right, which will take you to the Create Tender page. At the top of that page is the name, where we will type in the name of the tender. So if it didn't exist, for example, we could type in MasterCard. Require tender amount is a toggleable setting. When it's set to yes, this is going to require the transaction total to be typed into the register before the tender button is touched. Beneath that, allow over tendering. This is another toggleable setting that when set to yes, will allow the customer to pay more than the transaction total and receive cash back. Beneath that, we have open drawer. When this is set to yes, whenever this tender is used to pay for a transaction, the system will open the cash drawer. Export reversed. This setting, when toggled to yes, means that anytime this tender is used within a transaction, it is going to create a negative data entry for the drawer. This is good for payouts for lottery. Beneath that, we have max change. This allows us to define the maximum amount of change that we are able to give back to the customer when a transaction involving this tender takes place. Minimum sale amount. This allows us to define a minimum transaction total before this tender is allowed to be used during that transaction. Beneath that, we have the drop-down for reconciliation bucket. The reconciliation bucket is a bucket where all of the tender data goes into for reconciliation purposes. So for example, since this is supposed to be a MasterCard tender, we would probably put it under the credit card bucket. Beneath that, we have the accounting code. So if you have a specific code assigned for this tender to keep track of it, you can enter that accounting code here. Please note that our system does nothing with the code other than apply it next to the tender when you perform an account export for accounting purposes. Lastly, we have Manage Restrictions. This allows us to set up departments that are going to be restricted from allowing this tender to be used in transactions involving items from these departments. Selecting Custom, and then the gray Manage button on the right side will allow us to select from the list of existing departments which department this tender cannot be used on. Once we have set up those parameters, we can click one of the 3 Save buttons on the top right, and we've created a new tender. The last tab under the Tenders module is Pay In/Out Accounts. Pay In/Out Accounts are where we go to create accounts used to log anytime we perform a pay-in or a payout. This is also where we see the list of those accounts that have already been created. To create a new account, we'll click Add New on the top right, and that will take us to the Create Pay-In/Out Account page. At the top, it is asking for the name of the account, the code you have associated with the account, and whether or not this account is going to be for lottery purposes. Once you have filled out those parameters, you can save your progress by clicking one of the 3 save buttons. And that has been the tenders module within the FasTrax Control Center.